So now that you have a document, an image or a blank document that you actually want to be working with, what to do now. So let's just go over the basics of the layers and a couple of the tools before you actually get started. So you've opened up your image or your blank document, you've made sure you've gone in, you said File, Save As, you make sure it's a PSD, you've saved it as whatever you want to call it. Make sure you don't delete the file extension right here, because then your sort of computer doesn't know what kind of document this is. So it's always good to keep the computer knowing what's going on and keeping the extension of the file. So I've saved my document, it's a PSD, I'm ready to work with it, I'm ready to experiment. What to do now? So the first thing you want to do is you want to actually play with creating layers. Right here is sort of the layer panel, and you'll notice that there's lots of options and lots of things to do. Sort of by default, the background layer is locked, but you actually want to do something with the background layer or move it around. And if you have multiple layers, you can't actually move it below the background, because by default the background is the background and it's locked. You just double click on it and it's no longer the background, it's layer 0, and you can move it around. All right, so you notice right here we have lots of options. We can make new layers, we can duplicate layers, we can delete a layer, we can make a new group from a layer. There's lots of things that you can do here. One thing that's important to know is that you can create new layers and you can duplicate your layers, and you can also sort of copy from your layer or cut from your layer and paste it onto a new layer. And then you can also, once you've sort of really developed your sort of Photoshop workflow, it's a good idea to use groups. So groups are a way of organizing sort of your layers. And once you have something that has so many layers in it, you'll find it's really important that you start organizing your work. So you can think of a group as kind of like a folder, and you can actually move things out by dragging, or move things in by dragging. And the same thing with ordering your layers. You can just sort of hold on to it, click, and drag. And so it's really important that you get used to using layers and the idea of how things work with layers, because it's a fundamental aspect of Photoshop. So with these layers, you have lots of options. You can change blend modes, and you'll notice here there's a lot of different blend modes, and this is something we can go over later. So you can darken, we can lighten, we can overlay, and you can notice that this changes sort of how your top layer interacts with your bottom layer. And this is something you can do some great effects and sort of manipulations with your images. So we have the blend modes here, and then we have the opacity, and we can change sort of how opaque that layer is, and so what you see behind it. And you'll notice, why is this checkered right here? That just means that it's blank, there's nothing there. If I go here and I go edit fill, I can fill in the background using a color or a foreground or a background. And you say, what's a foreground, a background? These are these colors right here. This is your foreground, this is your background. And you'll notice now it's no longer blank, because this is now sort of set behind everything. But the checkerboard just means that this is sort of blank, there's nothing there. So while I'm working with my layers, it's a good idea to keep things separate. So if I make a new layer and I want to do some brush strokes, I like to name my layers, but that's really sort of up to you. If I want to do some brush strokes, notice here's my brush right here. This is the foreground color. This is the color that you will be sort of brushing with. So if you actually want to change that, you just click on it and you can change the color and say okay. You can always sort of switch with the foreground and the background. You can set back to the default right here. But say I want to draw with the white right here. Here are my different sort of brush options right here. You can change the hardness, sort of like how hard the edges of the brush. You can change the size of the brush. You can change the opacity and the flow and the mode of actually your brush, kind of along the lines of the blend mode. So if I just want normal and I want 100%, you notice, boom, it's drawing. But it's nice to have that on its separate layer, because that way you're not destroying the information of the image below. Because if, say example, I'm on layer 0, and it's very important to know what layer you're on, and this will be the layer that's sort of highlighted. If I draw on here, guess what happens? I can't move that. It's there forever. So Command Z, I can undo, but oh no, I can't undo all the way. If I just go to my history right here, this is really important. This can help you undo some sort of changes that, destructive changes that you might have want to go back from. So layers, history, these are important, and here are all your toolbars. And we'll start to go over some of these tools as we go along and start working with Photoshop.